Hello, everyone. Welcome to the A Train to Sedona broadcast. I'm Linda Marcanico. The A Train to Sedona is also the name of a memoir I wrote about my journey to love and compassion. I share my failings, my successes, in the hope that my journey will inspire yours. You can buy a signed copy on my website at lindamarcanico.com on Buy the Book page. You can also buy a copy at Walmart, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble. I also have a free gift for you. I call it the Cheat Sheet for High Vibration Living, a series of 7 exercises designed to have your energy be high and bright. One is prayer. Prayer allows us to know in faith that we are connected to a most amazing oneness. I pray every day. I talk to Creator in my own words. Thank you for this. What do you think about that? It's precious. And I really do wish to share it with you. You can download a free copy at lindamarcanico.com. I also have 2 disclaimers. One is that this broadcast does not establish a professional relationship. And 2, that the opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent Talk Radio New York City. Now, I have a guest today, Susan Griffith Jones. And Susan, I want to ask you to unmute yourself so that we can hear you. I first want to introduce you more formally. British-born, Susan Griffith Jones is a creative, innovative artist who has dedicated her life to traveling the inner pathways of the yogis, investigating the nature of existence from many angles, and communicating the like. She organizes the findings of her explorations into innovative, symbolic representations and into artistic documentaries whose timelines are built upon the sacred patterns embedded into them and displayed within her large photo collage art and art installation pieces. Susan explains their meaning in her books and articles, as well as publicly at conferences, workshops, and relevant functions. Susan has latterly combined all 9 photo collage art and installation pieces made during the last 20 years into a larger installation called The Magician's Jewel, whose shape and appearance symbolize universal truth, as a working device that's designed to revitalize the land and people in its environs, as well as describe the nature of consciousness according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Susan, welcome to the A Train to Sedona.
Thank you, Linda. I'm so happy to be here, and from my humble abode in the Indian Himalayas. Here we are, I think 9.5 hours ahead of you. You see it's dark outside. Anyhow, I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me on your show.
It's my pleasure, Susan. My first question is, what are the influences from your youth, your childhood, adolescence that bring you to where you are in your work?
I love this question because the answer to this is a very surprisingly, absolutely none at all.
None at all.
I was brought up on a completely different karmic track. I was groomed for the hallways of the British establishments. I was in an all-girls boarding school for 7 years, and I was expected to go on to university. And in fact, I had a place to study classics at Cambridge University, Latin and Greek. Something did happen, though, that summer to check my progress, which was, at the time, it seemed like a disaster, but in retrospect has been a great blessing, because I dropped a grade in my Latin A-level, And Cambridge University said that they would keep my place open for the next year, but I would have to retake my Latin A level. This is like your high school diplomas, yeah, in the UK. So it stopped me in my tracks because I had never, ever thought of doing anything else in my life except for going on and doing the normal thing, which was coming out of school, going to university, maybe going on to do a master's degree or whatever, and then finally ending up in some career. And we'd been groomed for this. I mean, totally, I was hard and fast in the karmic track of living a very ordinary British life. And then when I dropped this grade and Cambridge said that I would have to retake my Latin A level, although I had been offered places at 4 other universities, which I could have taken immediately, it gave me a cause to think. And in fact, I remember the very moment when it happened, because I was driving around the curvy little country roads in Oxfordshire. And I remember going around this corner and the sun was in front of me and it was so bright and it was summer and it was green and it was gorgeous and the trees were hanging over the road and it was just divine. And yet in that moment came a sort of voice in my mind. It was my voice. It was a voice of a higher power. I could not tell you to this date. You don't have to do this. I don't? Really? It was the first time in my life I'd been checked. But then comes this sort of panic. But what else would I do? I had no other idea how you lived your life except like this. I was 18 years old. And then came a sort of torrent of conversation between me and this so-called voice in my head. Well, just look left and just look right each day, and you will find what you are looking for. But what am I looking for? I mean, I was just looking for a normal life, a career, and blah, blah, blah. Well, you will find what you are looking for. And what am I looking for? I'm asking myself. You are looking for the truth. Boom! This hit me like a concrete ball on the end of one of these, mixer machines or something. Boom! I was like knocked over. I'm still driving, of course. The truth? And then a million different sort of ideas and thoughts came into my mind. The truth. What the truth? What the heck is the truth? I have no idea. The truth. And I think of, is it religion? Is it philosophy? Is it a blah, blah, blah. And then came the voice again. This is your last chance to get out. If you don't leave now, you never will. So unbeknownst to my poor family, who'd put me through rather an expensive private education and had very high hopes for me, Cambridge and all the rest of it, I cancelled my place. I told Cambridge I'm not coming, and I cancelled my place at the other universities that had offered me to start that autumn. And I left England. I bought myself a little rucksack, well, an average size rucksack, and a pair of hiking boots, having taken out my £250 that I had saved in my post office savings account. And I was sure this £250 would stretch me as far as it would, and when it ran out, I would stop, and then I would have to work. My family, when they learned that I was doing this, I'd already organized all of this before I told my family. In fact, it's worth talking about because it was at a Sunday. We used to have a Sunday dinner every week where the family would assemble at one of the homes, and everybody was present that evening. And I remember waiting for a silence in the meal, and then I suddenly said, "I have something to tell you," and all heads looked at me. I've cancelled my place at university, and I'm leaving England next week. I had already bought myself a ticket from London to Calais, Calais being the first port on the French side of the English Channel. And I decided I would follow the instructions to the T. You go day by day and you look left and you look right and you will find it. This truth thing that I didn't even know what it was and what I was looking for. they were very insistent. We're not going to fund this nonsense and da 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 da. No problem. I have £250. I will manage very well with that. And when I run out, I will work. What kind of work will you do? Whatever. I can do looking after kids, dishwashing, working in restaurants, waitressing, whatever. Wow, what kind of job is that? We didn't pay for this kind of education for you. You know, by this point, my heart was laughing. I was laughing. My heart was laughing inside. It was like I was released from a burden that I didn't even know I had.
Yes.
18 years old, I had no idea that what I was carrying was such a weight of a future of expectation. I must follow this path because I was so karmically grooved into this and groomed for this path. So I did. I got on that bus that day from a Victoria bus station in London. The bus went to the south coast. I got on the ferry and I landed in Calais. And then I travelled through Europe. I had no idea where I was going. I went left, I went right until I reached Florence, Italy, and I ran out of money in Florence, Italy. I mean, what a wonderful place to run out of money and to have to work. And it was so easy for me to find work. I mean, I just walked around and I asked in places and I easily got to work as waitressing, and I got some bar work, and I looked after kids. I looked after an old lady, and I had the most incredible, marvelous time. I cannot tell you. This was my introduction to the world, away from the bubble of society that I had been brought up in, because I discovered that I was so ignorant about the way people lived. I'd been kept inside this tiny little, just a little chamber, and I was expected to stay in that chamber for the whole of my life. And now I was doing work and jobs that I was absolutely not meant to be doing. And I was meeting people that I absolutely was not meant to be meeting. And I was as happy as I could be. If this was the first step on my path to the truth, just letting go of everything I knew and becoming happy, then that was a very solid step.
And you knew in your heart that this was the direction for you.
I knew in my heart, but then of course my mind would often interfere with, are you sure? Are you sure? This and that and da da da. And of course I would have to think again and again, maybe I should go back, maybe I had some insecurities, some doubts, of course, because I was so groomed to be in that scene. But to answer your question, back to the beginning, absolutely nothing at all. My family was not artistic. My family was not in any way spiritually minded, apart from, going to church on Christmas and Easter. And absolutely not. Nothing at all. It was definitely a deeper karma from a previous life that awoke in me. I don't think it would have been possible otherwise, because there was nothing at all to spur me on this path. Nothing.
Well, this is very dramatic, and it's just the time that we will take a commercial break. And when we come back, Susan, I'd like to ask you about the role of spirituality in your life. So, listeners, come on back after the break and we'll speak with Susan about the role of spirituality.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to the Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the A Train to Sedona. I'm Linda Marsanico with my guest, Susan Griffith Jones. Susan, would you tell us about the role of spirituality in your life?
Well, I mentioned previously that I'd ended up in Florence, Italy, and apart from working to earn my bread and butter, I had bought myself a very fat guide to all the arts and symbols, artistic places, the churches, the museums, more like a sort of tourist guidebook, but a bit of a big fat one, so that it had a lot of information in it. And I started going around and going to all these amazing places. I mean, Florence, it was the capital of art of Europe, the Medicis and I mean, you look in the churches, every church is an ornate example of very, very beautiful and classical art. It's based on sacred geometry and on, with great depth of history streaming through it from Egypt, from Greece, from these ancient places. So unbeknownst to me, I was starting to study sacred geometry subconsciously at this time. And I loved it. I loved it. I didn't know that this was a path of spirituality at that point, but today I do. I think this was a little bit of a difficult thing for me to address in my life, because my mother, who had been a church-going lady and used to take me to church as a small child, had completely revoked the idea of religion when my father died. She said, I was only 12 years old, and my mother said, how could a God be so cruel as to take him away from us? And she completely revoked Christianity. So, of course, there were subconscious influences on me that caused me to just a little bit distance myself from religion. And it's not that I didn't like religion. I mean, we had to go to church at school and I sang in the choir and all these things. But I wrestled with the vicar. In fact, I had a few discussions with him when he would say that Christianity is the only religion. And I would say, but Christianity, yes, I find Christianity absolutely fine. But I cannot believe that it's the only religion that is right. There must be the other religions. It's impossible that other religions would exist if there weren't some truth in them. And this had been the reason why I hadn't dived headfirst into Christianity in my youth, although I was sort of on the fringe of it. All the time it was there in my background. It was later, when I was 25 years old, that I'd been through a whole series of life lessons. And I had a business which failed. And I remember the day when I shut the door to that business, to the office. I locked the door with everything inside. I said, I'm not going to take anything. They can have the lot, whoever wants it. I will never, ever again in my life chase money. Never. Now I'm going to do what I'm meant to do. So you see, between 18 and 25, 7 years, I'd had a lot of life experience. I'd lived in different countries and, had so many things that happened to me. Of course, by then it was a lot of life experience. And I said, I'm going to do what I'm meant to be doing with my life. I need to be writing. I had no idea how to write, what would I write? And I remember asking an old school friend of mine, I said, look, I'm going to start writing. What should I do? She said, well, buy an A4 lined paper notebook and just write. And I'm like, but what? Anything, whatever comes in your head, just write it down. I'm like, really? Yes. So again, being the very obedient follower of the voices that come from both outside and from inside, I did exactly that. And I started writing. And the first 20 pages were like kind of boring stuff, just blah, blah, you know, I'm just writing bits and pieces. And then suddenly, out of the blue, I start writing about serious spiritual concepts and scientific things, and I'm drawing diagrams, and I'm writing these layers, and then the pyramids, and then this, and then coming from the highest levels of the cosmos, and like this. I mean, and oh my goodness, did I enjoy this. This was every day. I would sit down in the morning with my pen and my paper, and I would wait what's going to come today, and it would always be exhilarating. But it got to the point, I would say, about a year into the writing, that it got all too much for me. Because really, honestly, again, I had nothing to pin this onto. I had no knowledge of where this was coming from. This was, although I spoke of the great being as God, because I didn't have any other word for it, or we can't even say it. I did call it God. And I would refer to things like angels, because this is the language that I grew up with. I had no way to say where this kind of knowledge was coming from. It was not stuff that I'd had to read in the Bible or something at our church services at school, or whatever. Not at all. So after some time, I literally raised my eyes to the sky. I think there's a word for this, but I can't remember what it is. There's a specific word. And I called out to the whatever, whoever, however it is, up there, out there, in there, wherever, and said, I need help. I need a guide. I cannot go on with this any longer. You know, obviously there'd been some kind of Kundalini awakening going on, and so strange things had started happening to me, and I was a little bit freaked me out in some circumstances. So I really needed a guide. I said, I cannot go on with this path unless I have a guide. And to cut a long story short, because it is a long story, 3 years later, I ended up in Nepal at the feet of one of the really great old school masters of Tibetan Buddhism, whose name was, as he passed away now, His Eminence Chögyam Trichin Rinpoche, one of the teachers of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and one of the most revered masters of the, let's say, old school masters of the Tibetan tradition. And he took me under his wing. And for the next 5 years, almost 6 years, I studied under him, and he would guide me into different various retreats and give me various initiations into the path of the highest tantric yogas of Tibetan Buddhism. And he would send me to other teachers for specific trainings and yoga trainings and spiritual trainings. And I just lapped this up.
Well, I feel relieved that you found your teacher, because you had all this information, Susan, and it seems so lonely, and what do I do with it? So go ahead.
I was just going to say definitely lonely, because I thought I was going mad, and there was nobody, absolutely nobody that I could talk to about it. It was outside of everybody who I
Yes.
knew, outside of their jurisdiction. Back home in the UK, my family, even the people I was meeting on the road, people who become friends with me, everybody was on a different track. You know, a normal material track. We've got to live, we've got to eat, we've got to find our mate, we've got to have some kind of career, and that was it. I mean, I was also groomed for that track, so I could relate to that true, but this other thing,
Yes.
this was something I had to keep very, very secret.
So I have a question. What made you decide to dedicate your life to traveling the inner pathway of the yogis. Had you decided this at this point under this teacher's tutelage?
I think subconsciously I decided this right from the beginning when I left England when I was 18 years old, although I wouldn't be able to say that to you. Like at that moment, I wouldn't have been able to say, I am going off to become an inner inner yogi traveler of the pathways that I didn't know. I didn't even know that existed yet. I had been told right at the beginning, you will find it, just keep going, keep left, keep right, look left, look right, and keep going and you will find it. So that's what I did. And every time something came in front of me, I would look at that and I would say, is this, no, I wouldn't even ask, is this going to take me there? I would trust that it would. That's something that I always had in me. It was my inner guidance was trust. I didn't not do things because they seemed too weird or too dangerous or too out there or whatever. If my heart was pulling me there, I followed. I really did follow. So I don't think I really decided on this path per se, but yes, when I started writing, definitely this was something that captured me 100%. And I knew that this was the way that I wanted to go and what I wanted to dedicate my life to. So the answer to your question is a sort of yes and no.
On a deeper
But
level, you knew, but you hadn't brought it up to consciousness yet. And you followed your heart, which really has led you on your path for years. Not following money, but following the truth for you.
and still does.
Now, I want to know, you organize the findings of your exploration of the nature of existence into innovative symbols and representations. Could you tell us about the photo collage art that you do? The installation that's embedded in sacred patterns, and you've brought them into artistic documentaries. So could you tell us about that?
Again, I fell into it. I never decided on becoming a person who would make photo collage art. I never thought that I would even make a movie. It happened. It was part of what was going on at the time because I was first of all invited to make a documentary about the life of my guru, His Eminence Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche, largely because of my British accent. They wanted me to do the narration of the movie. And I ended up in the editing studio and I ended up sitting next to the editor and I ended up helping to edit the movie and to write the narration and to read the narration. So again, I'd fallen into learning filmmaking without, without quite believing that that would ever happen. And then they wanted to make another one and called me again. Like this, it went on and I made 4 or 5 different documentaries with the monastery and with a few other people around about. Once they got to hear about what I was doing. And then a fellow from Singapore who was also a student of Rinpoche, he knew that I had this connection with this valley up in the high Himalayas where Rinpoche had sent me on a journey back in 2005 to do a meditation retreat. Again, to recount that would take the rest of our interview, but it was extraordinary with a capital E. And I came back and I had taken 1,200 photographs of the valley because just as I was leaving Kathmandu and I'd been to my guru for his blessing before going on this journey, he had called out to me as I was leaving the room, take photographs. And again, quite by chance, another Lama had given me an old camera, the best Pentax of the 1960s that you would find in Japan. I think it's a Pentax or something. But the light meter was broken. And that was the camera I took with me to this valley and took the photographs. Now, I was not trained as a photographer. But somebody had given me a very short training before I left, like, if it's really dark, then, you know, the shutter speed should be like this. If it's very light, then the aperture speed should be like that, blah, blah, blah. And so as a completely unprofessional photographer, I went out there with a broken light meter on my camera, took photographs, and some of them were, again, quite extraordinary with a capital E. I mean, fantastic mistakes because I hadn't had the shutter speed and aperture speed correct. So yeah, so I got rainbows pouring over temples, like with circular circles of light all over the valleys, and like the most extraordinary pictures. And when I came back to Kathmandu and I had them all printed, because this was a 35mm click and wind, and I had a pile of 1,200 photographs of rocks and stones and mountains and monasteries and houses and trees and everything you can imagine. I said, I need to do something with these, because it would be such a waste just to throw them in a cupboard and do nothing. So I put them all down on my floor in my room that I was staying, like sort of a little bit on top of each other, because, I mean, the room was large enough, but anyhow, when I started to walk, as I was walking in and out of the room, I would just glance at the photographs left and right, and a few would jump out at me. And I would pick up those photographs and put them to one side. And soon I had a little pile of what I call the special ones. And then I started to arrange these special ones into a kind of shape. And, you know, a cross is a very standard shape. And so they first of all went into a cross. And then I saw that, because I was studying the nature of the elements, the meaning of the 5 elements, and I was studying the nature of absolute and relative reality. And I thought, if I were to make a cross of these two, and in the center would be the space, and then wind, fire, earth, water, and then I would call it 2 keys, 1 lock. 2 keys meaning the 2 sides of relative reality, let's say male and female, but just say polarized, the polarity of relative reality, which is actually 1 lock, 1 thing. So 2 keys, 1 lock. This was my first photo collage art picture. So how did I do that? My photos were lying on the carpet on the floor, and I needed to stick them onto something so that they would stay in one position, right? So I thought, okay, I'll go to the local wood merchant, and I bought some plyboard, and I got them to cut it into shapes which would represent the 5 elements at each end of the 2 keys. And then I stuck them onto, well, I placed them, first of all, I placed them onto the plyboard. Then I thought, this plyboard is quite ugly. I should cover it with some cloth. So then I covered it with colored cloth. I mean, in India, this was in Nepal at this time, but, you know, in India and Nepal, plenty of cloth, you know, merchants everywhere. So I bought some cloth, I stuck the cloth on, I put the photographs, then I stuck the photographs onto the cloth. And this was my first photo collage art picture. It was quite simple, but it was, I call it photo collage art because this was a compilation of photographs into a picture, and that was the name that came out in that moment.
Now I want to hesitate here, just need to hesitate, because I want to have enough time for you to talk about the magician's jewel. Now, in between listeners, the commercials, our engineer has put up 4 of Susan's beautiful images, including the magician's jewel. Is that correct, Susan? You gave us the magician's jewel as well. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you to discuss, describe, tell us all about the magician's jewel. But for now, we need to take a commercial break.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, a.k.a. the Corporate Cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Meltesh Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers!
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona broadcast. I'm Linda Marsanico with my guest, Susan Griffith Jones. Now, Susan, you've mentioned to me that The Magician's Jewel is a combination of all of your work. Would you tell our listeners about this?
So we ended off our last segment of our talk by me describing how I made my first photo collage art piece. I just will very, very quickly go through how I decided to make more photo collage art pictures, because this is pertinent to the answer to your question. So after I made this first piece, the 2 Keys, 1 Lock, I decided, oh, wow, this is fun. And I think I'd like to do an exhibition. And I thought, maybe I'll do an exhibition in London, New York, Paris, Milan, I started dreaming. But first of all, I should have a little practice go here in Kathmandu. 1 photo collage art picture is not enough. I better make another one. So I made another one. And so the years went on, and I kept on making photo collage art pictures as I was invited in on different projects. I would be taking photographs of particular themes. I made a picture of the photo collage art of the river Ganges in India. I did one using the plants and the foliage from Amazonia. I made a picture with sacred spaces and sacred people. There was the Mirror of Space, then the Rainbow Symphony, then the Key of Life. And then I did an exhibition in London with those 5 pictures. I was invited by the Indian High Commission to do an exhibition in their cultural centre. And it was lovely. With those 5 pictures, I had a beautiful exhibition, but it was a kind of closure of those 5 pictures. And then I was invited to make a movie in Bosnia about the Bosnian pyramids by Dr. Samos Monagic, who found the pyramids, rediscovered the pyramids back in 2005. So this was the year 2016. And he invited me down to Bosnia to make a film. And then while I was there, I decided I would need to collect all the information for this movie and put it into a photo collage art picture. So here begins series 2. I made one in 2018, then I made another in 2020, and then I made another, the 3 that you've just seen in between our dialogue. I made another, and that was completed last year in 2024. But what happened in between was I had been invited in on a project at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London to do an exhibition, or to help with, be involved in an exhibition with other people, not just my own exhibition. And I would need to write a project report for this. And it was when I was writing a project report about my photo collage art pictures, which is what they had asked me to do, that I started 2 Word documents. I had one for the photo collage art pictures and one for the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which was also one of the themes of the project at the museum. So I had these 2 Word documents, and it happened that a paragraph from this Word document would want to go into that Word document, and a paragraph from this Word document would want to go into this one, and slowly the Word documents merged. And was born The Magician's Jewel in that moment. I I saw that I actually had a project which would combine the three-dimensional, because now I have two-dimensional, but the pictures would become three-dimensional inside this installation piece, which would support my would give me a way to show the process of existence according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And I had been searching for this for a number of years. And boom, it came down in that moment. And probably for the next 21 days or so, I was writing voraciously, and I was going to a local fellow who does my design work, and I was getting these computer-generated images, one of which you have just shown. And I was writing a project report and filling it in with the images. So that's how it was born. But then it's developed a lot since then, because that was the beginning of 2021. And since then, I've been going around the world. I've been making presentations of it, doing workshops about it, giving talks on it. And of course, this has filled out a lot of the space that was there in the beginning. And now I'm moving into phase 2. And phase 2 is to create a prototype. I have now got a model which is made of household materials that my husband actually kindly made for me. He spent 1 month, it was a labor of love, making me this beautiful model that I could take around and show at presentations and workshops and things. But that is now gravitating into a prototype, because these years I have been exploring the scientific, not just the, let's say that the Tibetan Book of the Dead really represents the process of consciousness. That's where the spiritual heart of it lies. But the shape and design of the pyramid, of the installation itself, is more what we would call like a stupa here in the Himalayas. And the stupas are not just pretty things that are built to look nice next to a monastery. They are technically built in order to quell the tremors in the earth, to balance the elements, and to have a beneficial effect on the natural environment. Not just the natural environment, but on biological creatures, humans included, any biological creature, and the earth herself. So now I've got something which is like an art installation which shows the process of existence according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I've picked out key symbols and shapes from each of my photo collage art pictures, and I've combined it into this one installation piece that will have this beneficial effect on the environment, obviously when it's built and at a later stage. I'm aiming high. Literally high. I want it to be around 90 feet. I know that sounds big, but I want people to be able to walk on it, go into the chambers of it, I can describe a little bit more about its construction, because it's a little bit of a lengthy process. I can just take you through a visual description of the Magician's Jewel in the next segment of our discussion.
Yes, I would like that. And where did you say the installation would be? Where will it be? Have you not? I'm so curious.
Well, it's a very good question, and it's the question that everybody asks. And so far, with my wanderings of the world and doing presentations and stuff, I have been offered 2 very special places to put it. But I think it's also something that will, once I've actually built it, there will be one main piece, and then there will be many, many smaller versions of it in many, many different places.
When you say many, many different places, many countries, or within the primary location of the installation?
Definitely within many countries, and definitely on key main ley lines within those, and earth grids within those countries.
On the ley lines, how wonderful to stabilize and to embellish the ley lines to support that. It sounds like a most co-creative endeavor.
Well, Tibet was traditionally seen as the body of a demoness. And in order, because there was a lot of fault lines there, right? And there would be a lot of earthquakes and different kind of tectonic movement. I mean, it's the Himalayas, it's moving, these plates are moving, yeah, between the Tibetan plateau and the Indian side of the Himalayas. So Tibet was known as a great demoness, and in order to quell her, they would puncture the earth in very key places in order to calm her down.
I see.
And this was stupa technology. This is how the stupa technology was created. And of course, it's moved into many different styles and types. The Nepalese ones look different than the Indian ones and look different than the Tibetan ones. But they all have a fundamental purpose and they all have a similar technology behind them.
Well, I want to understand more about this. We need to take a break. And I want to mention that in Sedona, I would say about 10 years ago, a stupa was finished right off Highway 89A, back behind homes, a most beautiful testimonial. So we need to take the break and we will come back, listeners, and we will be talking about this wonderful co-creative project. Because when I say co-creative, I mean between you and creator. So we'll take it away, Jess.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marcanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
I haven't muted myself, and now you can hear me. Welcome back, everyone, to the A Train to Sedona broadcast. I'm Linda Marcanico with my guest, Susan Griffith Jones. Susan is going to tell us about the project, the installation of the Magician's Jewel.
Well, although we've established we're not sure where it's going to go yet, but we do know that we would want it on key ley lines or also, on earth grids and other very sacred places on the earth. It could also be at different scientific and spiritual institutes as their front piece kind of thing. So it's not only for the ley lines and for the earth grids, although primarily that's where its technical function would do the job. So what I want to describe to you is the process of existence according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And I'm sure that many of you have read or have come across the Tibetan Book of the Dead because it's such a famous piece of literature that I think it's hard to escape our ears. It's also a very complicated book, and without the symbolic training, or rather the training in the symbology of the highest tantric yogas of Tibetan Buddhism, it's really rather difficult to understand it. Why there would be these funny-headed and deities, animal creatures and other very strange objects that they're holding in their hands. Again, you see, we come back to my own subconscious training back in the churches of of the Renaissance Florence, where I learned about symbology so deeply, I resonated very well with this kind of symbology. So in this piece, we start off in what the Tibetan Book of the Dead terms as the bardo of life. Now, there are 6 bardos. Bardo means in between. And we are in between birth and death. This is the bardo of life. And as we are going to meet with either something that's going to cause our death, or we meet with, say, an accident or something that may happen suddenly, we enter into the bardo of dying. And once we come out of the bardo of dying and we leave behind our physical human body, we continue as a consciousness into what is termed as the bardo of reality. Now, in the bardo of reality, this is where we have a number of options. It's almost like the crossroads. So if we can recognize the nature of our mind, let's call it, I mean, I know there are a lot of other terminologies for it, but I'm just sticking to the Tibetan terms here. Then we will jump into this. Again, I don't really want to term it as a light, but it may seem like something like a light. And we will merge with our nature, the source of our being, so to speak. Again, I stumble with the language because there is no language at this point. But if we are not equipped to understand what this great light is, we might be quite afraid of it because it's very awe-inspiring, and we might be like, oh, I need to get back to what I'm familiar with, because where's the tangibility? I need to touch something, I need to hold something, I need some sensual support. Then we will see that there are different colored lights that are lurking in the background, and we will start to gravitate towards these different colors depending on the frequency of our mind. So, for example, if we are more prone to go towards the realm of the gods, we would gravitate towards a yellow light. This is as it mentions in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, etc., etc. Not to go into too much detail because there's a lot of detail. In fact, the bardo of reality has the most detail in it. Then will come these huge angelic-like creatures, and they will be like, don't go into those doorways of light. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. You are da-da-da-da-da. And they'll go off into great dialogues about nature of your existence, your mind, your da-da-da-da-da. And then if then they will give you the option to jump into their heart, at which time they'll take you off to some pure land somewhere. Then if you miss that opportunity, then will come the slightly more wrathful looking beings. They're not demons, but they look quite demonic. They're wrathful. They're like, remember who you are. Don't go on into it. Come out, jump out of the system. I'll take you. Kind of like this. And then this is quite awe-inspiring as well. So you mean like, none of that. And then you will gravitate to one of these doorways, in which case you'll be taken into the environment that you are going to be born in, say human realm. There are 6 realms as mentioned in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And you will just say, be taken into the human realm. And then you will see creatures and people of different types copulating, and you will jump into that orgasmic space, and you will enter into the bardo of becoming. And then you will wake up again after a certain period of time as in the bardo of life. So this is the cycle. 6 bardos, 6 realms. You know, there's a lot of symbology here also in the numbers as well. Coming back to the magician's jewel. So what I've done is that I have created a pathway through this installation that will take us through each of the bardos. So we start off in a beautiful park. It's the Bardo of Life. And then we enter onto the main structure that's at the center, and we go underneath it. And we will learn about lucid dreaming. This is the Bardo of Sleep. I didn't mention that in the Bardo of Life, there are two other Bardos, Bardo of Sleep and Bardo of Meditation, which makes the 6. Then we will go up the travelator, which is the Bardo of Meditation, ending in an Om chamber where there's a recitation of Om. Then we will come down and go through a Fibonacci spiral, which is the Bardo of Dying. So now we're leaving the Bardo of Life. We will enter into the heart of it, which is the Bardo of Reality that I described in quite some detail with the angelic beings and the wrathful beings. We will come out of that in another Fibonacci spiral, one being black, the one Bardo of Dying, this Bardo being white. And then we will get back down to the park again, at which point we'll enter into the Bardo of Living, Bardo of Life again. Now, in between, we have virtual reality simulations. We have augmented reality simulations. We have sitting imbibing this great chanting. We have this explanation of the lucid dreaming and, again, virtual reality displays. And we have this beautiful harmonic park that's been, describing sacred geometry. And I mean, this is really in a nutshell. It's
And
really
I wish we had another time. We'll have to do this again, but we are at a time where we need to get ready to close. Susan, the description of the Bardo is absolutely amazing. And I've enjoyed your presentation so much. Thank you very much for joining us. Would you let our listeners know where they can find you?
My website is www.pyramid, as in pyramid.com. pyramidkey.com.
Okay.
I missed the key there. Pyramidkey.com. Yes.
And I want to say to our listeners, say again.
I was just going to say you can find my details there and all of my work, my films, my books, my photo collage art pictures, my installations, the events that I'm doing, and the events that I've also done in the past.
That sounds so wonderful. Listeners, if you like this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. If you like the caliber of my guests, and they've been just so informative and amazing, do write a review and celebrate what we offer. I wanted to say next week, my guest is going to be Jared Rosen. He is the publisher of my book, The A Train to Sedona, one of the publishers. He started Dreamwave Press, and he will be very interesting and entertaining. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you to you too, Linda. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it immensely. Thank you.
I'm so glad.